All right, now that's 12:01 and I can hear the church bells next door to me going off. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Abigail Jager and welcome to today's How to Go Solar Plus Storage workshop. I'm a program manager at Solar Oregon. This is one of our recurring workshops that we've been delivering to home and business owners across the state for over 15 years. Our mission is to arm you as a consumer with the information you need to make good informed choices as you explore solar and or battery storage. Solar has changed significantly in the past decade and a half, and as we update this worksheet regularly as conditions in the market change. Today, we'll cover many aspects of solar and battery storage. We'll start by taking a look at how solar works. We'll then look at the different things that can make you either an excellent candidate for solar or may mean your project costs a little bit more or might be inadvisable altogether. We'll then talk about some of the available incentives that can help save you money. And then we'll dive into the exciting topic of battery storage and how you can get started. We're here to get your questions answered. And after the main presentation, we'll have an extended Q&A where any and all questions about solar and battery storage or even related technologies are welcome. Now, while I'm going through these housekeeping things, I'm also going to launch a few polls. These are completely optional, that they just allow us to know a little bit about who's attending our events and where people are and some information that can help us apply for grants and other forms of funding. So if you wouldn't mind filling those out, that would be very much appreciated. At the end of the presentation, like I said, we'll be having a Q&A. The Q&A button is available at the bottom of your screen. You can see it highlighted in orange here. Please put any questions you have into that option. We'll be going through all the questions at the end of the presentation, so don't feel like you need to wait for the end of the presentation in order to put your questions in. You can put them in at any time. And thank you for filling out that first poll. I'm going to go ahead and launch the second one now. Um, Now, as I said, I'm a program manager with Solar Oregon. Solar Oregon is a 501c3 nonprofit that has been providing educational content around solar and storage since for over 30 years now. We do this through a variety of events and educational resources, such as this one. We as well as events like our Solar Wine Tour, our Go Zero Tour, which just happened last month, almost exactly a month ago today, and through other events that allow solar enthusiasts and people who are interested in solar to connect and get their questions answered. This workshop is also made possible by support from Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust serves over 2 million people in the Pacific Northwest and helps them access clean and renewable power. Energy Trust is a great resource within our community. We'll talking a bit about some of the programs they offer specifically tailored for storage towards the end of this presentation, but they are a great resource, and thank you, Energy Trust of Oregon, for your continued support. And thank you for filling out that poll. I'm going to launch one last poll before I dive into the main presentation. And while that poll's going on, I'm also going to put a link in the chat to just some general information I'm referencing and resources that you can have access to after the presentation is over as well. Thank you so much for filling out those polls. Like I said, your answers are not shared with anyone, are completely private. We just use them to help us apply for funding and so that we can have some information about who we are serving and how we can better improve. So now let's dive into how solar works. So this is a diagram of a typical home solar system. You can see the house in the middle of the diagram. Sunlight strikes the solar panel labeled here as a photovoltaic panel and produces a voltage of electricity. This is a special type of electricity called DC electricity, which is different from the AC electricity used by the lights and appliances in your home. That's why we have another special device called an inverter or micro inverter that converts the volt of electricity generated by the solar panel to usable from DC or direct current electricity to usable AC or alternate current electricity for your home. From there, it then flows into your home electric panel to power your lights, computers, charge your electric vehicle, and do anything else you need electricity for your home. If at any point in time your home is producing more electricity than you need, any excess power you are producing flows out to your new bidirectional utility meter to be used by your friends and neighbors. And conversely, if at any point in time your solar panels are not generating as enough power as you need, the power will flow from the utility grid into your home to help power your home and your life. This is what we call grid tied system, meaning you are still attached to the electricity grid. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the device that converts the DC electricity generated by the solar panels to the usable AC electricity for your home. There are two options available, both inverters, which are pictured on the left, and microinverters, which are on the right in that orange box. The white both of them, so an inverter, which is again pictured on the left, accepts the electricity from all of your solar panels and converts it all at once. So if you have 10 solar panels on your roof, you'd have one inverter and it converts all the power all at once. The inverter is typically installed on the wall immediately next to your electric panel. However, if space is not available nearby, it can also be installed outside. In this case, though, there may be some extra cost due to longer conduit runs. Conversely, microinverters, which again are those small black boxes pictured on the right, are mounted on the underside of your solar panels, and they take in all the power from only one solar panel at a time. So if you have a 10-panel solar system, you could have up to 10 microinverters in your system. Typically, they take in the power from about 1 to 2 panels, depending on the size and expectation, what your contractor thinks would be best. Both inverters and microinverters are great options that are installed frequently throughout Oregon. It really just depends on the needs of your system. And a great question to ask your contractor is why they would recommend one or the other for your particular home. When it comes to installing solar panels, one of the important things to consider is whether or not your home will need electric panel upgrades. Your electric panel has to have enough space on it in order to meet the added feed in of the solar panels, and ideally, you might even still want to have some extra breakers available in case you are planning any additional electric changes to your home. Based on your home size and energy consumptions, your contractor may need to upgrade or install a new electric panel, and older homes may need further electrical upgrades in order to make solar panels a viable option. Your solar contractor will talk to you about what they think you need and will help you future plan as well, depending on what changes you anticipate going forward. Solar panels can be mounted either on your roof or in the ground as a ground mount. Roof-mounted systems account for the vast majority of solar installed on homes and businesses, especially in dense urban areas where ground space is not available. Ground-mounted systems can be a great option for families with more space. However, because they still need to be wired into your home's electrical panel, ground mounts installed far from the home can increase the total cost of the system. This cost is partially due to the high price of copper in the wiring, as well as expenses related to burying the wire underground in order to protect it from the elements as well as any creatures that might be digging in your yard. Now, when it comes to how solar actually helps save you money, this is done through a process called net metering, which allows you to build up credits during the sunny summer months and use them up all winter in order to help offset the price of your electricity. In order to explain this, I'm going to go through two examples. First, looking at a typical sunny summer month, which we're not quite in anymore. But if we think back to when it was July and it was hot and sunny and the days were long, we can see that your solar panels will be producing a lot of electricity. You can see that in this orange bar here on the left. And yet your consumption is only about half of that. So you export all that excess electricity, which is indicated by the green arrow here, out to the grid in order to be used by your friends and neighbors. And you would gain credits for that electricity you are exporting. And now if we think about a day like today, it's pretty gray outside. You're probably still producing a little bit of solar from your panels. But your consumption has stayed about the same. It hasn't really changed between your summer month and your winter month, and that solar you're producing, even though it's still producing something, doesn't quite meet that need that you have. Therefore, you're going to need to draw more power from the grid. And luckily, you built up net metering credits all summer long that you can now utilize. Apologies. So net metering credits roll over from month to month. That's what allows you to build up credits all summer long and then use them all winter. However, they do not roll over year to year. The net metering year begins and ends around March 31st, depending on the bill cycle you are on with your utility. And on that date, any excess credits you have that are not utilized are forfeited. This is why it's really important to size your system correctly, as you want to be able to have your electricity costs fully offset without having to pay any cost, but you also don't want to be paying for more than you need and exporting more than you need to the grid, as your utility company will not be cutting you a check for the excess usage. So now what does this actually look like on your bill? So here's an example utility bill. So we can see that the net meter reading at the end of the month was 8,000 and the beginning of the month with a calculated kilowatt hours of 237 and excess generation of, meaning that this customer exported 564. So they have a negative net period usage highlighted in yellow, that negative 327, making their billable kilowatt hours 0. And this negative 327 has been added to their year-to-date banked excess generation, which is those net metering credits I was talking about, that they will then get to use up all winter long. Now, apologies, I'm getting over a cold. Now, despite one important thing that you need to be aware of is even though the billable kilowatt hours for this bill are 0, even when you are in that case, your bill for your utility will not be $0. This is because we pay between $12 and $18 per month just to be connected to the utility grid, as well as some various taxes and fees. So while you still will have a bill, and it'd be quite nice if you got a bill of $0, $12 to $18 is still much less than the average utility bill here in Oregon, which is between $70 and $100, depending on where you are in the state. Now, as I said, your goal is you want your solar system to meet and not exceed your expected utility usage. This is because you want to ideally offset as much of your power as you can with solar, but you don't want to up the cost of your solar by adding more than you need just to have it be exported to the grid and not utilized. This is why the size of your system is based on your consumption and how much energy you use. However, your solar contractor will also talk to you about any lifestyle changes or appliance changes you might be making that could increase or decrease your expected consumption. Examples of things like this could include switching between gas and electric water heaters, purchasing an electric vehicle that you intend to charge at home, or having a child move in or move out with you. Other factors that can limit your system size are available roof space, budget, or limitations placed by an HOA or condo association. Note that it is illegal in Oregon for HOAs to tell you that you can't go solar. However, they can impose restrictions on how you go solar. If you have more questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat and I'd be happy to answer them in more detail. So now with all this information on how solar works, how can you know if your home is right for solar? Regardless of your location in the state, the orientation of your home has a big impact on your solar access. This diagram shows a home and its orientation with respect to the cardinal directions. The arcs over the home show the path of the sun in the summer and in the winter. Regardless of the season, the sun will always be in the southern sky. This means that south-facing roofs are ideal for solar. However, both west and east-facing roofs can work great. In cloudier parts of the state, roofs facing due east can be slightly less effective. This is because clouds tend to persist through the early morning, blocking some of that sunlight. The only roof planes that consistently don't get installed on are north, northwest, and northeast facing. Now, even if you have a perfectly south-facing roof, shade from objects like trees, buildings can prevent you from receiving enough solar resource. However, it can be hard to self-assess whether shading your roof receives will negatively impact you. Your solar contractor will be able to assess this for you with precision, either using special measurement installed devices or satellite-based software. And even if your home is well shaded, we don't want to cut down those big, beautiful trees. They do help keep your home and our city cool. However, you might just want to look into other options such as community solar, as then you can still support solar power and get some of your power from renewable energy while also maintaining the beautiful trees that we are fortunate to have throughout our state. Now, the if you're planning to have roof mounted solar, your roof complexity and structure does also matter. Your roof needs to be able to withstand the added weight of the solar panels, meaning you need to have the proper supports to support it. If you have a um, roof with just trusses, you may need to add, or just rafters, apologies. You may need to add some trusses in order to add some extra support, which can increase the cost. Additionally, if you have a very complex roof instead of one singular roof plane, you might have, ooh, is, is everyone able to hear me? My audio says it's being a little bit funky. I'm assuming. Awesome. Thank you so much for the person who put an answer in the chat for me. We'll answer questions at the end. I appreciate everyone a lot though. Um, as I was saying, the structure of your roof and the complexity of it can make a difference. If you have a lot of small roof planes throughout your roof, you might need to have multiple small arrays rather than one large continuous array, which can increase the cost of your solar system overall. And lastly, not only the shape of your roof and the structure of it matters, but also what's going on top of your roof. We recommend that you have at least 10 years of roof life left for your roof, as this means you won't have to deinstall your solar in order to just reinstall it, which can lead to added cost and also has a high likelihood of your solar breaking throughout that process, which can again just add added costs. So we recommend you have at least 10 years of roof life left. So now with all that, we're going to dive into the exciting topic of battery storage. So it's important to know that your solar system by itself does not allow you to use solar electricity during a power outage. This is because they need to make sure no power is flowing out into the grid in order to protect anyone working on the grid during an outage. To do this, you'll need to add a battery. The ability to use power when the grid is down is called energy resilience. Solar and battery storage are complementary technologies. Solar makes the battery more effective by recharging it, and your battery allows you to access your solar independently from the grid. Power outages vary in their cause and their frequency and their duration. Frequent short outages are usually caused by either storms or squirrels. In some areas, slightly longer outages in the summer months can be caused by red flag weather conditions where there is a high fire danger. At these times, utilities may perform what is called a public safety power shutoff, where they intentionally shut off whole sections of the grid if they think their power line infrastructure could impose an unacceptable fire risk. In the Pacific Northwest, we also face a unique risk of a large earthquake, the Cascadia earthquake. When this event occurs, it's thought that power may be lost in the Willamette Valley for up to 6 weeks. On the coast, power may not be restored for several months. It's important to know what type of outage you're expecting or wanting to endure so that a contractor can design a system that will meet your needs. You also should remember that solar and storage technology can typically provide power for short and medium length outages, but it can be prohibitively expensive or infeasible to prepare for a month-long outage event with a standard home solar storage system. When it comes to picking a battery, there are many good products on the market. However, due to manufacturer certification requirements, many contractors specialize in one brand. For this reason, if you want to compare different battery technologies, you may need to compare quotes from multiple contractors, which I recommend you do anyway. And you also cannot mix and match battery brands, though some battery manufacturers have different modules that can be combined. This means that if you get a battery from brand A, you cannot later add on a battery from brand B. However, your solar panels and your battery do not need to be the same brand. You can mix and match those. Most batteries have between 9 and 14 kilowatt hours of capacity. Some manufacturers make smaller units capable of around 3 to 4 kilowatt hours, and some make supersized units with up to 20 kilowatt hours. For standard household electrical loads, many batteries will perform well, but if you're intending to use the battery to back up a load that requires a lot of instantaneous power, like a motor, your contractor will need to factor this into the system design. And it's also important to be aware that batteries will require space. Batteries cannot be stored in an enclosed space, such as a cabinet or cupboard. They must be freestanding out in the open, as pictured on the left. Now, as I said, it's very important to set your expectations properly about what a battery can do and what it cannot do. Even if you don't use much electricity, a single battery will almost never back up your entire home for a meaningful period of time. However, what many people choose to do is called a partial home backup. In this scenario, certain circuits in your home will receive power from the battery, but the rest of your home will lose power during an outage. If you're able and willing to front the extra cost, multiple batteries can allow you to achieve a whole home backup. This process is prohibitively expensive for most consumers, but is a simple and more efficient process overall. When it comes to a partial home backup, there are two key ways to do it. The first is the creation of essential loads panel. This is a separate electric panel that, in the event of an outage, one panel will go completely off, everything on those circuits, while one panel will remain on and functioning using your solar panel and battery backup. This will be a secondary electric panel, usually placed right next to your first, and everything on it is set. The other option, nowadays, there are also smart options available, such as the SPAN Smart Electric Panel. This will be one new electric panel that would be installed in your home and will allow you to, via app or via web browser, to adjust where some circuits are in your home. So you would have a must have, a nice to have, and a um, not mandatory sections, and you're able to move circuits between those sections as you wish. I know some people who move things who will also automatically shut off circuits in order to impact their children's screen time, such as cutting off the circuit that powers the Xbox. But in the event of an outage, the must-have circuits will remain powered, while the nice-to-have circuits will remain powered until your battery reaches 50%, and the non-mandatory circuits will automatically shut off immediately. This allows you to customize what you are powering at any given point in time. However, it is a newer technology and therefore more expensive. Now, when it comes to a partial home backup, no matter what system you choose, it's a question of what needs power and for how long. The circuits which you've selected to receive battery power, your contractor will put those on different breakers and install those to the battery. But the more things you have doing that, the shorter amount of time your battery will last. Typically, people select a fridge, some lights in common areas, and maybe an outlet or two while they allow the rest of their home to go off the grid and go dark. So now that we've gone through some of those basics, we're now going to talk about what incentives are available in order to help you afford your solar power. The primary incentive available to you now is our Energy Trust of Oregon incentives. These are the amounts that were available for 2025. The 2026 amounts are going to be released next week. However, I just left these ones up as we are expecting them to be about in the same ballpark range, but these will be changing very soon for 2026. But if you're a Portland General Electric customer, you could receive $600 for solar and $250 per kilowatt hour, up to $3,000 for storage. And if you're a Pac Power customer, you would receive $650 for solar and $300 per kilowatt hour, up to $3,600 for storage. In order to access these incentives, it's very easy for you as a consumer. The only thing you have to do is select an Energy Trust of Oregon Trade Ally contractor. Trade Ally contractors are contractors that have gone through ETO's vetting process and are familiar with all ETO standard design and installation requirements and are approved to offer you these incentives. Once you select and sign a contract with an ETO contractor, that is the only thing you have to do in order to access these incentives. They will apply for them on your behalf, and you will just see the discount on your final bill. Now, in addition to those standard solar incentives, is also Energy Trust Solar Within Reach program, which are some income qualified incentives. These function, I apologize, I'm going to need to blow my nose very quick, but I will be back in just a moment. Apologies about that. I made through half the presentation without needing to take a break, so hopefully I can get through the next half the same way. So in addition to that standard incentive that I showed on the previous slide, there's also Energy Trust Solar Within Reach, which is their income qualified incentive. These function very similarly. There's an amount for PGE and an amount for pack power. And if you are within the income threshold for the incentive, you are able to access it. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now to see if you qualify. And I will also put links to both of these incentives in the chat at the end of the presentation. Now, there are lots of in the next slide, I'm going to be looking at an example budget for a solar system. However, before I do that, I just want to be very clear that there are many reasons costs can vary, and this is just an example budget. Based on your home and your system itself, your costs can change depending on your system size and design. If you need any roofing or electrical upgrades, if you're installing storage with at the same time as your solar or at a later date, how many incentives you can access, and if you have any interconnection issues. Ooh, apologies. So now here is an example budget. So we can see that the total cost before incentives was $32,000 for an 8 kilowatt solar system and $52,000 for a solar and storage system. From there, you then get those Energy Trust incentives. So that lowers $600 for just the basic solar system and $3,600 for a solar and storage system, making the total out-of-pocket cost to you $31,400 or $48,400. Now, I apologize, I did remove the slides on the investment tax credit, but forgot to update this budget. That 30% investment tax credit is a federal program that is going away at the end of December, and at this point has already been filled for this year and is no longer available if you have not already signed and made a commitment with a contractor. So that makes the out-of-pocket cost for a customer $31,400 for an 8 kilowatt solar system and $48,400 for both the solar and storage system. And there are also some other income qualified incentives, such as those Energy Trust ones I mentioned, that can help you save additional money. And there are typically an increased cost if you do not install your storage system at the same time as a solar system. Now, when it comes to financing your system, because solar and battery storage entail a large upfront cost, many homeowners utilize financing. Some homeowners obtain a loan through a bank for which they have an already existing relationship, but some banks do not provide loan products specifically tailored to solar. Your contractor may partner with a credit union or third-party broker that offers a package geared towards solar. But we always recommend you check with your local banks and credit union as well as your solar contractors, see what they offer. And as with any major financial decision, make sure you carefully assess your financing options. So now, how do you get started? I would highly recommend working with a Energy Trust Trade Ally contractor. These are contractors that have been rigorously vetted by Energy Trust of Oregon. They are approved to offer Energy Trust incentives, which save you money, which we all love, and they are familiar with design and installation requirements for Energy Trust and throughout the state. If you would like to request a custom analysis and bid from up to 3 Energy Trust Trade Ally contractors, you can scan the QR code currently on the screen, and I'll also be putting some links in the chat in just a moment. This will take you to the solar bid tool, which if you put in some information, will then connect you with up to 3 contractors who work in your area for you to get a customized analysis and bid, and just put you in touch with 3 Trade Ally contractors, which is great. Once you select and sign your contractor will help you complete all the paperwork you need. And permitting can vary, but installation is very quick at usually only taking a few days. And your contractor will manage all inspections and interconnection. So all you have to do is flip on your lights and be proud that you are now in a solar powered home. Now, are there any questions that I can help answer? Please put them in the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. In order to keep things organized, I'm going to ask that people type in their questions rather than raising their hands, please. And while people are thinking, I'm going to grab those links I mentioned as well. Please put your questions in the chat. One question we've gotten is, can you use an electric car for storage? So this is a new idea that we have not seen quite come to fruition yet. In an ideal world, yes, we will be able to, and I believe some of those electric vehicle manufacturers are working on such technology to make that happen. However, from everything I've read and seen so far, it's very much in the DIY third party space at the moment and is not supported by the solar companies or the car manufacturers quite yet, though hopefully that is coming down the pipeline, though I have no idea what time frame we are looking at. I apologize. Someone commented that the chat is disabled. When I said chat, I meant the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Um, And then someone also asked if there are any incentives available for vehicle to home installs. And as I said, because this is really in the DIY space right now and third party manufacturers and isn't really coming the from the solar companies or the car manufacturers yet, there are no incentives for that past the electric vehicle incentives that already exist. But I am hopeful that we will see those coming as using vehicles for storage becomes more commonplace. I'm here to answer your questions. I want to make sure you leave here getting all your questions answered. I'm putting those links in the chat now, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in. I'm also going to launch the final poll. We got another question in the chat. Any idea of the typical cost to install a vehicle to home setup in your home, adding to a panel for input from auto? So I don't know the typical cost. Like I said, that's very much in the DIY and third party space right now. So the cost can vary. And I know many electric vehicles are not equipped with the correct software or infrastructure to allow a vehicle to home setup. From my understanding, you would need to install a special type of plug that allows that bidirectional energy transfer, as that's part of the main issue. And they're still working out how to do that in a safe and effective way. So I'm not sure the typical costs, though I'm sure there are some folks on the internet that would be happy to help you get that set up and research that more. I'm hopeful that we will see that becoming more and more commonplace within the coming years as we figure out how to best utilize the electric vehicles that we already have. And thank you everyone who answered that poll. I hope you got your questions answered. Please, I'm happy to wait around if there are any other questions that you want to put in the chat. But if there are no more, I will end the webinar momentarily and hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon.